And I'm going to say good morning, everybody. Very exciting. We have some awesome new legislative updates, some great new things to talk about. Hello, Mr. Adam. Come on in. Everybody is online today. So, the wonderful people in my room, thank you for joining me. Otherwise, I'd be talking to a screen by myself, which I hate. It's so sad when you're talking to the box and nobody talks back at you. You're like, hello. And nobody ever wants to talk on Zoom, which I get. Because when I'm on Zoom too, like the leadership, I don't talk either. It's like you don't want to be that person, right? But you
So
know what
sorry,
it's like.
Carrie. So
Yes.
sorry. Uh,
What are you
So
sorry
sorry
about?
that you're talking to the box. Good morning.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it. You could come into my office. It'd be so nice to see you. I miss you. I miss your signing face. Come see me. But
Miss you too. Bye.
Barbara, Barbara's in the ceiling because we hear you reverberating through the ceiling, but we'd love to see you. So it'd be great. But that's right. That's where we keep you. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and I'm going to let a couple more people in and we're going to get started because there's been a busy session and we're going to say this, it's going to get busier, guys, because as you know, there's a lot of seats up right now. Um, both mayoral seats are up. So Buddy Dyer and Mayor Demings are both up for reelection. Not up for reelection. They're both not being reelected. So both those seats are being vacated. So both of those seats are in contention right now. Ms. Anna, we've got lots of races. Lots of commissioner seats are open. We've got lots of races happening all over town. And this is the time to really get involved because some of these people are pro realtor property rights. Some of them are not. Like Anna Escamante, who we got to meet 2 years ago in Tallahassee. I didn't see her this year in Tallahassee. Um, I was shocked when I saw her in Tallahassee because we were talking about property rights. I think I was actually talking about the condominium situation. We had Save Our Home. We were trying to get Save Our Condo, right? Because when Governor DeSantis obviously had to enact all of the new rules for condos because obviously Sunny Isle fell. We all know what happened there. We needed to obviously look at the infrastructure of the condominiums and had to put in obviously the new rules on how we had to look at the structure and of course the reserve study and all of that. Well, what has that done, guys? Here in Central Florida, we have, what is it, 39 different condominiums that have unfortunately had to evict people because we had to condemn those buildings. And what happened to those poor people? Did anyone buy those units? No. Do you think their insurance paid for that? Yeah, right. So they are essentially evicted. They're essentially homeless, aren't they? And that happened right here in our district. She didn't know anything about it. She was like, really? I mean, that's in our district, guys. That's right here. Some of them are right in her own district. And
But we're not the ocean.
yeah. But we're not here in the ocean. Yeah, we're not. If we were, we probably would have had the money because those expensive condos. These things are happening right here in our own backyard, and we need people. And she said, "Well, I didn't know because I don't even own a home." Anna, exactly. Anna's eyes are huge right now. It's like mic drop, right? Yeah. So we need people who are in office in whatever seat that they're running for, which did you see? What's our friend from Goba who's running? Yeah. Yeah. I know his name just escaped me too, but I love him. He's great. Yeah. But anyway, we need people who understand what's happening in real estate in these seats. Because if you don't even own a home, and heck, you don't know what's happening in your own district, how the heck are you going to make a change for the good? Does that make sense, guys? So when we go to Tallahassee and we talk about these things that are happening, it's like sometimes going on deaf ears because these people don't even realize if you don't own a home, and you think you understand what's happening with ADUs? You think you understand what an ADU even is? Like, heck no. So this is a situation that we need to, this is why it's important that we get involved in politics. It doesn't mean you have to like politics. It just means that we need to definitely watch who is running, because if they are in those seats of power, God forbid, they do affect what we do for a living. They do affect what we do and not only in our livelihood, but our very life every day, right? Because we are homeowners too. So they affect us personally and professionally. I don't know about you guys, but that's a double whammy. So this is why this stuff goes hand in hand. And this is why we're going to talk about this as you go into a listing presentation. Let me ask you, how many people are talking about this? I can tell you the other people are not. And you are the one who are going to look different to the sellers when you are up on what's happening and how it affects them and their property rights and how it affects at whatever price point you're at. It's important to be the person in the know and to understand how this is all affecting what is happening in the landscape of real estate here in Central Florida. So does that make sense? That's kind of what we're going to go through today. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump ahead, share my screen. And we're going to jump over to the presentation that I have of the legislator. And we're going to talk about everything that's going to go on and how it affects. So here it is. I wish I could.
Can you be one of the candidates?
Huh? Can I? Yes, in my spare time. Maybe once my kids finally get into the law school and the dental school and MBA program and I'll get my life back. Maybe next year. He kind of is already, a poor guy. Oh yeah, speaking of guys, so a little change in my schedule. I am still leaving out of town on Thursday, but instead of going to New York, I'm going to Raleigh-Durham because my son got into Duke. Woo! Go whatever they are. I don't know, but I think they're hills or so. Tar Heel. I don't know what they're there, but anyway, they have good colors. So we're anyway, but I will be heading to New York, but that's in April now. So, but you can still reach me via text because I don't get to even join for any of this fun stuff. Why he drags me along to all this stuff is because he wants me to eventually at the end of the day, we're going to be doing our pro con list, right? And going through it all. So, but that's why no one's really covering me because you can still text me and call me. And if I don't answer the phone, I'll text you. So I'm still available. I'm just available in a different state. Okay. What state I'm in, it's really irrelevant. I barely know where I'll be either, but that's my point.
I
Okay.
could bite my tongue on what state you're in.
Blue Devils.
Blue Devil. I'm a Blue Devil. Maybe. Woo. Maybe not. I don't know. It all depends on money, guys. Let's be anyway. Okay. Moving on. So let's talk about the advocacy wins, industry impact, and what things have kind of been pushed off and what happens with that. Okay. Because we are going to talk about that as well. So moving on. So here's the session overview. So it just ended on March 13th. No budget was passed. Surprise, surprise. It seems to be like a recurring theme, but we were going to continue with that. And there is a special session coming in April. And what happens in the special session or what is, no, I'm just kidding. What happens in special session stays in special session. No, what they're going to be doing in special session, so you know, are two main things. One is redistricting. That is a big thing that will be happening in special session. Number two is they're going to be doing Governor DeSantis. They're going to be voting on Governor DeSantis's property tax where he wants to have no property tax on homesteaded properties. That's one of the large things that they're going to be talking about. But, and who knows, there could be other things that come up, but those are the two main points of the April special session. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Here we go. Why all of this matters to you. This does impact your income. It affects liability on a lot of different things. It's going to shape many of our transactions and it's going to impact your customers. I wrote clients. I can't believe I wrote that. I was very tired. Okay. So let's talk about some of the significant wins. And is anybody trying to get in? Because if someone's trying to get in, let me know. Oh, let's see here. Hold on. Somebody trying to get in. Okay, so protecting consumers and realtors by maintaining existing real estate regulatory structure. So here's the big win. They did not decommission FREC. Woo! They tried. So all you guys who may or may not realize, they did try to, once again, as they did last year, deregulate the DBPR. So they wanted to get rid of it. They wanted to have somebody, some pencil pusher, actually maintain FREC. And what that would have been, it would have got rid of, well, we're going to talk about that. These are some of the big things. We're gonna hit at that. They defended property rights. They have stronger laws against people who want to use fraudulent information to occupy homes and rentals. They prevented confusing septic.
Good morning.
Good morning, and they're protected realtors from
Yeah.
liability.
Oh, yeah.
Hold up different side.
Did you hit?
Okay, we need to like mute somebody. Okay, let's just do this. All right, so here we go. And let's just get into it. So here's this one. So the HB 607, that was what they had called again up. And this may come back around again next year. But I think because there will be a new Speaker of the House and a new, who is the head of the Senate? I forget what they call that seat. Those are changing next year. We got to hear them. They're really good. They're very sharp. I think with those two gentlemen at the head, I would be surprised that this would come back again, but you never say never, right? But this has come about twice by the same gentleman who brought it up twice. Again, because of the change that will be happening next year, I'd be surprised it comes back up again, but it could. But basically, he wanted to get rid of the continuing education requirement. And this is not just real estate. It's the Florida appraisals. It's also like construction licensing. It's all licensing that goes through FREC. That's what, if they abolished this, it would gotten rid of all of that. Could you imagine? I mean, think about it. When you log into DBPR, My Florida License, how many licenses do they talk about there? Hair license, I mean, like it's everything.
Anna, Florida
It
Credit.
would have gotten rid of all of that.
I was just calling to let you know that I did get a pre-approval on the Robert Shires loan, but the lender is still asking for
Okay.
it from him, just like some.
I don't know who we need to mute here, but we're going to mute somebody here. Mute. Everybody please mute. Thank you. Okay, there we go. So back to FREC. Now, also what it would have done if they got rid of the DBPR, it would basically been like you would have had the opportunity for not only anybody to get a license. It was basically like if you're in Brazil, all you need in Brazil is an occupational license.
Mhm.
Yeah. Same thing, become a realtor. Same thing in Peru. Same thing in Colombia. You just need basically an occupational license and boom, you can sell real estate. Yes, that's what it would have been like.
This is back to.
Wild West.
Land.
Yes, yeah. It's kind of how we got the reputation. So imagine all post-licensing continuing education requirements would have been replaced. I mean, you wouldn't have required it. So long story short, it passed 2 committees in the House, by the way. It had to pass one more committee and then move to Senate, but thank God it got stopped in the last committee at the House. So it never made it to Senate. But scary anyway that 2 committees in the House passed it. What does that tell you? Well, this is what it tells you guys. Once again, be careful who we send into these seats. Lack of understanding of what we do, lack of understanding of what any of these people do. Could you imagine the whole purpose of why was this established in the beginning? Why did we even have the Real Estate Commission? Why was the Florida Real Estate Commission? Why was DBPR, Department of Business and Regulation? That's even the larger broad body. Why was that created? Does anybody know? To protect the public. So if there's any kind of issue in any of these licensees, that's where people go to report them, right? To protect them. So if we did away with the Department of Business and Regulation, that is a very scary situation. Because who is protecting? I mean, I have to say it's a little bit scary right now about the level of protection. Could you imagine then? It takes time now. I mean, so much time, and we don't even really know exactly what happens. Imagine if we did away with it and you have somebody just, okay, anybody gets a license and anybody, I mean, that's really scary. So thankfully, cooler heads prevailed and it did not pass and things are continuing as per normal. I'm always the one saying we need more like restrictions, but you know, we will continue on. We don't know what next year brings, but again, I feel strongly that who we have in the place of the head of the House, of the Speaker of the House and the head of the Senate, I think it would be surprising to see go through again, but you never know, it could come back.
Says a lot that our trade organization is out in front saying, no, we want more
Yes.
regulations, higher standards, not less.
Yeah, Trey Coleman, who is our who's the head of public policy, was fighting this tooth and nail. He was there every day, making sure that this did not go on. But you never know. I mean, but again, here in the local level, it is our duty, guys. It is our duty to make sure that these people are not getting put in office because they're up there in Tallahassee voting. These are the people who are voting to have this pass. And if we allow these people to get in the House without doing anything, not even like if we don't even know who is up for these seats and we're not even part of it, it's partly our fault if this goes through. Do you guys not agree with that? So that's why it's really important we stay ahead of these things. Okay, property rights bill SB 1293. Not that you have to know what all these bills are, but this was about rental properties, and it made it fraudulent to occupy. It actually made it a felony. So it's a felony if you move into a rental property with forged documents or a false identity. Now it allows the landlords to quickly remove you, and in that way you can have it fraud. So it's faster removal, stronger lateral protection, and now it's stronger penalty because it's a felony. So how great is that? Because just like we've had issues where people are buying property fraudulently, they were also occupying rental properties fraudulently. Now, thank God we don't do a lot of rentals, but imagine if you have a multi-million-dollar property where someone gets in there fraudulently, try to get them out. We did have a property one time, I think it was Bruno, and this guy, was it Bruno? I don't remember. He rented this property. Maybe someone on the call remembers. He rented the property, paying like $16,000 a month. He prepaid like 6 months ahead. And he thought, okay, this is good. He was going to buy it supposedly, but he needed to rent it first for 6 months or something like that. So instead of doing like a contract, I don't remember how the contract was worded, but anyway, he rented it first and then was going to execute the contract. Long story short, he had all the furnishings in there, whatnot. The seller left it all in there, and then he was going to move out once the sale contract was going to go through. Well, after 6 months, the guy stopped paying the rent. So he prepaid, but then he stopped paying. So now we have to go through an eviction process. Can you imagine? Because he stopped paying. Now, this is a multi-million-dollar property. We have to now go through an eviction process. Well, when we finally start going through this eviction process, the guy ends up leaving. And not only did he leave before we could get all the things out, he left with all of the furnishings. Can you imagine what a nightmare? This does not look good for us. It doesn't look good for anybody. It's a terrible situation. So this is one of the other reasons that I hate rentals, guys, because even in that price point where the guy prepaid all that money up front, that maybe was his whole thing. Maybe he planned to do that along. Who knows? Who knows? But this is one of those scenarios. Maybe he fraudulently did it. We don't know. I can't tell you, but this is my point. You got to be really careful, even in these high dollars. So this is a really great one. That's a good win. Here we go. Transaction improvements. So this is about septic disclosures. So Florida realtors successfully worked the bill with sponsors, because what happened was they created this bill. They thought it would be good, but what it did was too much language. It made it very clunky. So what they did is they removed some of this disclosures, and now they're going to be able to draft legislation to make it more meaningful and reduce litigation, because the way that they created this bill, sometimes you go overboard to make it better. So the bill that they had created caused all this confusion, made all these lawsuits, and created all this a mess of lawsuits. So this new bill that they put in, cleaned it up, took away this, and now they are making it easier. They're going to create new language to make it cleaner, but they have not finished it. So now it's entering into the drafting phase to create new disclosure language that will be for the consumers, not for whoever this other language was for, because clearly it was for some attorneys and nobody understood what it meant. So that's the new one there on the septic tanks. Liability protection. This is SB 856. So this is about sales tax. And basically it is so people understand that when you buy a property, taxes can raise. You're not buying at the price that you bought it for. If somebody owned a property for 20 years, they were probably homesteaded in there and their property taxes remained at a good price, right? So they're going to let you know that how much your taxes could rise after that sales price has been triggered, right? So this was very needed. So platforms have to comply with this. And here's the best part, guys. We are now protected under liability. So they can't come after us and say, you didn't tell us that this was going to be the way. So now first platforms and websites have to provide a link either to the property appraiser's estimate or the homepage has to hide the current owner's previous and year's taxes. So they either have to give one or the other. They either have to put the link to the property appraiser's website where they're going to estimate the new taxes, or they have to hide the current taxes. Because it's not fair. It's like, oh, look, this is what it's going to cost. That's false, right? So this is a great thing. And they can also provide tax estimates using millage rates or countywide averages based on formulas from the Florida Department of Revenue. So this is the platforms having to comply with true tax estimates or bringing you right to, right from the Department of Revenue or property appraisers. It's not, Zillow figuring it out.
I don't know if they're going to also include the platforms that, for builders and construction, they're gonna be forced to also do it?
My understanding is everybody.
Good.
I think this is going to affect
I think so.
everybody. Now, this bill hasn't passed yet, so that's why I can't say that in general, but it will likely happen during the budgeting process. And they think that initially they said it was going to go through by February of 2027, but they think it's probably going to more likely pass through budget, which would be sooner. So initially they thought it would be happening by February 2027, but now they think it'll probably happen sooner. So, but at the end of the day, this is a great thing because I think a lot of people were, I think, getting, I don't want to say scammed, but were falsely being led to believe that this was going to be, they were going to be paying much less for their taxes than they were. And that's never a good thing, right? We never want people to think that they're going to pay less for their taxes than they are. I'm going to let Mary in. Linda, I can't get you in. What's wrong with my, hold on, I may have to escape here. 1 second. Let me let her in real quick. Participants. 1 second. Admit. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to share again. Share. All right. Any questions so far, guys? We doing good? I'm going to hope that that's a yes. Okay, excellent. All right. Participants. All right. There we go. All right. So that's that. Now let's move on here. And this I'm just going to put up here. All right. This is Hometown Heroes. So the Senate proposed to allocate 75 million and the House has allocated 50 million. So obviously this won't be passed until we get through budget, but we've allocated more money regardless. What will it end up being? Will it be somewhere in the middle? We don't know because obviously we don't have an agreement here, but we've agreed to allocate more than we had. So this is a good thing. How much more will it end up being? We don't know, but we'll figure that out. My Safe Florida Home and My Safe Florida Condo. So both the House and the Senate would fully fund it. And the SHIP program is 165.7 million. So these are great. So they understand and they're starting to see the problems that we're having and they're agreeing to put money towards these programs. So this is a good thing. And also the state apartment incentive loan program is 70.8 million. So I think one of the biggest things that they've realized is that we have obviously housing issues and they're willing to fund some of these housing issues. These are good things. Now, again, until we get through budgeting, they can't get through budgeting until we figure out what's going on with property taxes, right? Because we'll all talk about this, but if you take away homestead tax exemption, we have to move things out of different buckets, don't we? Because that's going to take a chunk from somewhere, right? So that's why budgeting is not completed. All right, so we've gotten some great things on the water quality efforts. So these are some of the things that have happened. The Everglades, again, we don't have equal numbers. The House has said 378 million, the Senate says 563. What will it be? We don't know, but there will be money for the Everglades. How much? We'll see. Rural and Farmlands Program, the House is 500 million and the Senate's 100 million. Big difference there. It's so funny when you see, you can kind of you can follow up that there's a big difference in thought, right? And one of the big problems that we've seen this year more than previous years is it's very hard to get anything done because the House and the Senate are in very different mindsets. They are like fighting with each other. It's worse in DC for sure. You can't get anything done there. They're just fighting. They don't even talk. At least in Tallahassee, they talk, but you can see they're not on the same page. So it's a battle trying to get anything done. Protecting Florida's springs. That's the first one. Look at that. What? I think we've all come to the same page. That's exciting. Okay, great. The beach inlet management is close. Water projects, only the Senate agrees. So the House does not feel that anything needs to be done. That's kind of a problem. Statewide flooding and sea level rise, they have both come to an agreement, 100 million, amazing. Water waste grant program, a little off. So we see that they see a need to do something about quality of water efforts. Again, we will get back to you, or I will get back to you with what has been decided after budgeting, but none of this can come to a conclusion until they get their budgeting clearly. Okay, Citizens Insurance. So this is interesting. Now, you all know that Citizens is basically a commercial clearinghouse, right, for insurance. And there's been a new law created for commercial residences and commercial non-residences. So basically, all policies have to go through and be redirected to private insurances if their offer is 120% of Citizens premium residential, or if the offer is with 115% of Citizens non-residential. So that's a really good thing because Citizens is kind of like the bottom of the barrel. It's like the last chance, kind of like Last Chance U. You guys ever see that movie? So this is kind of a good thing. They're trying to make this every time we look at it, we're trying to help make obviously insurance more affordable in Florida. And the good news is by doing what they've done by stopping the litigation, they are bringing more companies back. So now that we're having more companies coming back, they're trying to see, because right now what's happened is there's so many claims with Citizen that are not being addressed. I don't know how many years out these claims are. Does anybody even know? I don't know. There are a lot. So they're trying to say, okay, we need to funnel these policies through. If Citizens really are above and beyond what they're even going to be able to do, let's try to make it reasonable and put them through other companies that can service them better. So this is a much better way to do this. And I think it will really help and assist because I think people just don't know. So Citizens is trying to help do this as well. So this is a good thing. And this is some permitting changes that they're trying to make streamlining of the permitting process, which is a great thing. So this has to do with the septic system permitting. They're trying to streamline the process for building permits, septic system permits, and they're allowing local governments to accept the proof of applications instead of requiring full permits up front. This is brand new. This is good. We've been crying about this for a long time. I know this is something that GOBA, which is the Greater Orlando Builders Association, was really pushing for. So this is going to help faster project starts, less red tape, and help improve efficiency. So this is a good win for, especially for GOBA. So affordable housing, this is something for the Live Local Act. So this is a big, Live Local Act is something that Florida Realtors created. I want to say 2023 is when it started. I don't remember. Was it 250,000? I don't remember how much money we put into this, but basically what this latest change to it affects the land use change, and they allow now for school districts and religious institutions to now also go under the Live Local Act. So basically, this is allowing us to be able to use the land in better ways. So they're trying to broaden the usage of the Live Local Act, which hopefully will help. So what failed to pass? Well, let's talk about, sadly, accessory dwelling units failed to, and I think a lot of this is because people don't understand them. because we wanted to allow these ADUs in single-family zoned areas because this will help for our situation where we have people not being able to afford homes. But unfortunately, it passed in the Senate, but it failed in a disagreement between the House and the Senate. So basically, they're fighting. And, it's a shame because if you're able to put a house in the back, right? Imagine how you can really help with our affordable housing issue.
Or to buy, because it wasn't investors, it was for primary residents only.
Exactly. It was for primary residents only. And we're not saying we're changing zoning. We're not changing the zoning. This is a lack of two things, in my opinion. A, people not getting along. It's just stupidity. It's just communication problems. And B, understanding. If you had people who truly understood what it was for, I think you could have gotten this pushed through.
We changed the DTI for a lot of first-time homebuyers.
Yeah, of
And-
course. Yeah. So, we're not trying to make everything multifamily for Pete's sake. I mean, they're adorable looking things.
But their mom, their dad, their grandmother.
Yeah. So we're going to try again. We're not done with this. We will try again next year. But this is a shame. This is something that could have really helped with our situation with income housing.
Really successful in Orange County. You're just, because Orange County has it. It was still going out the whole state.
Well, it's really a shame, but it's one of those things that is someone trying to get in. Hold on, let me stop the share for a second. Oh yeah. Or Dawn's trying to get in. Okay, let's go back over here. So that unfortunately did not pass. Also, the property tax relief legislation. So the Florida House proposed 8 property tax relief bills. They eliminated non-school property taxes on homesteaded properties, which failed to pass because there was no Senate bill companion. But again, there's that special session in April. And I think that a lot of legislation about tax relief would not have passed anyway, because in reality, everything is probably going to come down to the special session in April at the end of the day anyway. Everybody wants to see what's going to happen, who's going to vote on what in regards to homestead. Because if you take away that homestead, the property taxes on homestead properties, how does that affect the whole landscape of the dollar of property income from those taxes? That's what you have to look at, right? And if you take away that income, how are you subsidizing that money? Where else are you getting it from? So that's where they have to look at, okay, well, if you want to give property tax relief, well, where else are you giving relief to, right? So that's why I think that probably did not pass. Now, HOA condom association reform sadly did not pass, but this would have allowed HOA parcel owners to dissolve their association, and that would have created a state-funded court process for condo disputes, which would have automatically made them update governing documents to comply with state law. So that is a huge bummer because we have a lot of situations where some associations are not complying. Their governing documents are not in compliance with what state law is. But it didn't pass because the Senate did not have a companion bill. So again, lack of understanding, right? Lack of people seeing the need for this being an issue. That's the problem. You see, if they don't have a companion bill, only one side sees it as an issue, the other side doesn't. And again, sometimes I have to think we only pick so many issues that we go to Florida Realtors with, but you have to say, if we deal with this on a daily basis, we know, guys, how many times do we have an issue? A, not only getting the documents, but B, they're not up to date. They're not compliant. This is a big issue.
Was this presented in a way that it?
Who knows?
Real world to their constituents, because that's the only thing that matters.
I don't even, how could it possibly be if they don't understand it themselves?
That's what I mean. They didn't.
If they're not even homeowners, right? Or if they are a homeowner, but they don't understand condominium. This is the problem. This is where you have to say,
They need third-party stores.
yeah, exactly. How can you make it real for someone so that they understand the need and that this is not just a one-time issue, but it's a constant issue that's affecting the people who live and work in their district? This is the problem. So, but anyway, that didn't pass. Okay, So that is what happened. I'm going to stop my share for now. That is essentially the wins. Oh, let me go up here and then I'm going to, hold on, share where I got this from. So share this screen. And if you go over here, you will see on Florida Realtors, they have a final legislative update, which is not near as fun as mine, but it's all right here. If you want to get into the weeds on it, I'll be happy to send it out, but it breaks it down into more depth about all the different things about the different bills of interest right here. So if anybody wants me to send that out, I'm happy to do so. But that's where that all came from. And again, you need to stay up to date. So we had, did anybody go to the State of Real Estate Seminole County? Okay, that's okay. We don't really work in Seminole County. There is an Orange County coming up, a State of Real Estate, and it is on April 16th, right? April 16th, April 17th, I lied, which is unfortunate because now I'm going to be in New York. But April 17th is Orange County State of Real Estate. Definitely make sure you go to that. That is going to be very informative. It's going to let you know all sorts of things. We're going to have different elected officials there, and it's going to be very informative for you to be at. It's going to be at Aura. If you haven't registered, go to Aura and register. It starts at 8 a.m., right? Yeah, 8 to 12. And it's free to attend. Please make sure you attend that. It's going to be very worthwhile for you to attend. They have lots of information. They're going to have also information on transit. That's another thing you need to stay up on. Transit. There's certain things in our industry that affect us, right? Politics is one of them, again, because what does it do? It can greatly affect how we live, work, and do business, as we just said. The other thing is transit. Transit affects how we live, work, and definitely do business, right? Like how many of you know, example, the 429, that extension way that goes all the way to Seminole, to the airport. Is that the Seminole Airport? What is that airport called? Sanford Airport, right? That little extension way. I don't know what that little part way is called. They called it something. The one that's 429 that continues all the way, which is awesome, by the way. Has anyone driven that to the airport? It's amazing. You don't ever have to get on I-4. So awesome. I love that. It's not the 417, the 429. If you take it from Windermere, it goes all the way over to Sanford Airport. It's amazing. They call it something like the Wekiva Parkway or something. They gave it a name. I don't know, but they continued the road. So great. My point is that road was built from only the money that was, taken from the tolls. The taxpayers never paid a penny for that, which is really important to know because a lot of people think, oh, well, we're paying for that in our taxes or things like that. No, it's not. And the roadways that are being created right now off the 417 and all of those roadways are coming off in Osceola and all those ones that are long, necessary, and needed, those are also being created from the monies that are taken from the tolls. None of that is being additional funds from taxes or any other governing body. Those are all coming from monies collected from the tolls. That is really amazing when you think about it, right? Now, the reason that they've not been done to today is not because we didn't have the money, which you're probably thinking that's why. Like Osceola County, we all know is a mess, not because they didn't have the money, it's because Osceola County opted to not put the money there, but to put monies towards taking away impact fees. That's why, because during the COVID, they wanted to increase building. They thought that would spur their county on during COVID, which it did. But that was kind of their thought, that they thought it would increase their economy, so they would increase building and stop the roadway building. So they stopped it on purpose, stupidly. And that's why they have tons of new construction, but no roadways to account for it. So that's why now they're trying to catch up. But that was a decision made at their local government level, which is another reason why we have to be careful of who we bring into the local government, right? Because they're the ones making these choices. I may not agree with that choice, but back then, maybe it seemed like the good choice. We are all thinking not right now, right? So Yeah,
15 is in the.
yeah, like if you, exactly. Here's the point. But the point is that the more you know about this, if you have a high level listing down there, this is the kind of information you need to be sharing because you're the one with the correct information that, as a matter of fact, who's looking at Growth Spotter, right? Like, let's take a quick peek at Growth Spotter, right? Let's share. Let's all take a quick look and see what's going on with Growth Spotter right now. Because every day, oh, look at this, brand new stuff. Coulter's planning a huge community near I-4 in Seminole County. There's new stuff popping up all the time in Growth Spotter. And when you're seeing all this new stuff happening here, you need to be, I mean, have you guys all kind of become part of this Growth Spotter? Because you need to be seeing what's happening all the time. As this stuff comes, construction causes local uproar in Winter Haven. Like in Winter Haven, what about Winter Garden? Is everybody up on what's happening in Winter Garden? I mean, do we all know what's happening in Winter Garden? And I was telling you guys about a meeting because I was a meeting behind because I've been traveling so much. But I mean, we all know that that developer, what was his name? I can't remember his name.
Owns the pharmaceutical company.
The guy who owns the pharmaceutical company
And-
has bought 2 buildings. Somebody know?
Sorry, no, I'm just saying he owns the Anton RX.
Thank you, Stephanie. He purchased those 2 buildings. And by the way, the Three Birds Cafe is already gone. Can you believe that? They've already moved out. That was so fast. Well, they're just out super fast. I was like, one day they're there, the next day they're gone. And also Moon Cricket's going out too, right? As soon as their lease is up, they're gone. So what is happening to the face of Winter Garden? That will be changing. We don't know what he's doing to those buildings there. Is he going to take them down? He hasn't turned in his plan to, did anyone go to that meeting? Stephanie, did you go to that meeting?
No, sadly I couldn't go.
Okay, well, I didn't get to go because I was out of town, but we need to follow up and see, I didn't see any information. Has any information been put out anywhere about the meeting?
It was basically just, homeowners and residents voicing their concerns, but there was no.
Was there any information about what was going to be
Yeah,
done, what was going to be built?
And the mayor did an interview and he basically said that he did not share his plans, but the mayor feels confident because he's a long-term resident that his vision aligns. The only information we have.
So here's the thing. We need, as realtors, because we're realtors, we need to talk to the mayor because we know the mayor knows. And this is the point. And we should as government affairs, we need to go talk to the mayor of Winter Garden and figure out what the hell is going on in Winter Garden because this affects our people. And then as we get listings, we share that we already spoke to the mayor of Winter Garden. You see, this is how you use this information in a listing. Well, I don't know if you're aware of what's going on down in the Three Birds Cafe. Oh, yeah, we saw it. Of course they saw it. Everybody saw it. It was all over the news, right? You say, well, because of that, I've already spoken to the mayor. Okay, that is something nobody else has done. You see what I'm saying? This is the difference between taking the information that we know and taking it to the next level. And this is what I'm saying. This is the stuff we need to be doing. So we need to take this type of information to the next level. The things that we see here, for example, when you are looking at sending out a piece that you're going to send out or preparing your listing, for example, or doing a real estate review. Let's say you're going to do a real estate review for somebody. You should be putting into that real estate review what is happening right now in the state of real estate. And there's a lot of things going on. The legislative update would be one of them. Do you not agree how it affects their largest investment? Because what we just covered would affect a bunch of things that they own if they own here in Central Florida. Would you not agree? This is the difference between just having some information and now applying what that information is to what they happen to particularly own. So this is my point. You want to take this information and do something with it. So for example, let's say you want to talk about for example, let's talk about the rental. Let's talk about how it's now a felony for people to be able to rent fraudulently. Maybe you know somebody, you do a search to see high dollar amount rentals above a certain price. And you wanted to send out something to say, great news. Did you see Bill SB 1293 passed? Now your rental is protected. Somebody cannot fraudulently rent from you. That would be an interesting thing to send. Do you not agree? First of all, they probably don't even know what Bill 12, HB 1293 is. But now you're a much more interesting person to talk to than probably the person they rented it with, aren't you? Not to say you want to get involved in rentals, but maybe they don't always want to rent a $10 million home. Maybe that was a means to an end at the moment. Just say if you're interested to learn what else has happened in the legislative session and how it could, affect your investment, please contact me. I'd be happy to have a conversation. This is just something, a way that you can use just one of those things we talked about as a hook. Does that make sense? So these are the things that I want you to think about. All of these things that we've done, we could put into a newsletter as well. Not all at one time, because that's a lot of information, but I think it should be one a week, maybe. How it could affect them, right? And that could be something that you could add that you send out to your database. It could be something that you put out in a social media piece. But this is the kind of stuff that's going to make you stand out amongst the rest. And to my point, if you are going onto if you're especially competing at a high level listing, this is the kind of thing that you want to talk about when you're going to a listing. Like, someone give me an example of a high level listing you're going to. I'll help you use this. Anybody? Nobody has a high level listing they're going on. This is just sad. I am depressed. Nobody has one? No way. Everybody's gotten their listings. See, this is where it gets sad for me. For example, Shandy. I saw that you're on. Where's Shandy? Did she jump off? Shandy, are you on? Maybe she jumped off. So Shandy and I went on a listing last week, and the gentleman was 81 and sharp as oh my God, Tech. That guy was so sharp, super smart. He used to do real estate for for IBM. And let me tell you, we better know what's going on, because he did. He knew everything that was going on. Yeah, but he was concerned about the war. He was concerned about how the war would affect his sale. Now, this is something you guys might come up with. He's concerned about getting into a long a long contract with us, because what if he changes his mind? What if something happens? How can he get out? Has anybody heard that one yet? That was a first for me. And I said, great news. Because why? It's always great news. Because we would never force you to sell your home if you don't want to sell your home. Right? Isn't that true? Not that we think that the war, of course, no one ever knows, right, is going to affect the real estate. Because why? What is different about the Orlando market? You know what's interesting about this gentleman, 81, Mr. 81, brilliant as a tack. I can tell you, he knew, he had studied our market and said, Carrie, it's so interesting. He could have tested me, but he didn't. He told me, which of course I already knew the truth. I already knew the answer. March is one of our strongest months. Indeed it is. And he asked me why, though, which I can answer. March, I like to call March Madness, because the month of March every year, and I've been doing this since 2004, every year is one of our strongest months. And it is an interesting phenomenon, but I think it's because we have so many people coming down for spring break. We have people thinking about starting to move because the school years are coming, right? And that is what it kicks off the summer months. So traditionally, March is one of our strongest months every year, no matter what part of town you're in.
Spring break in multiple locations. It's
Yep,
not just-
all over town.
So
It's wherever
that's-
part of the country you're from. Exactly right. But he was surprised. But he could have asked me what was one of our stronger months. I would have told him it was March. But he knew it was March. It was very funny. But I said, but the other interesting thing about Orlando is we are not a seasonal market. So unlike the coast, Tampa is still seasonal, but Naples is definitely seasonal. Sarasota is seasonal. Ocala is still seasonal. But Orlando is not a seasonal market, and mostly because people come here to live and work and play. We have a very robust market because of the amount of businesses. What's different about the Ocala market is it's a very fractured market because you've got the most high end there. We have my highest sales come from Ocala. Sorry, guys. But then there's no middle. The middle drops out. And then Anna, then you have the low market, right? 350 maybe to, high twos, middle twos, right? That's like the bulk of that market, right? Tana's on. You really don't have anywhere like between the 5s and the 8s. Like there's nothing really there. Yeah, it's just nothing's kind of in that market, unfortunately. I wish there was. I think it would do well. Don't you, Tana? I see Tana Darley on here. She thinks she would agree with me all day long. So that's what's interesting about that market. You don't have the infrastructure of the jobs that would sustain that price point of that market, unfortunately. But in Orlando, we do. We have the jobs that sustains the price points of what we have here, which is that middle market. We don't have a ton of the high end, but we do have a great, strong middle market here. And that's what's great. We don't have a lot of the low end anymore here because that's kind of fallen off. And that's probably the bigger problem because that's why the first time home buyers are really struggling in our market. Because really think about this. Back in, I would say 2004, right? Windermere was just kind of coming out, right? And Dr. Phillips was already built out. But what was your A areas? Windermere, right? Dr. Phillips, but it was still kind of grown out already. Claremont was probably a B area, right? At that time. But think about it. No one was going to Lakeland. The heck is Lakeland? Winter Haven? Like, no, we didn't talk about those areas. I mean, that would have been like, what? So now Windermere's long grown out. Claremont is totally, boomed, like just really grown, right? So Lake Nona is really huge. Now you're out to Osceola, right? You're out in St. Cloud. That's like so grown. So areas that used to be cheap are no longer cheap, right? Those areas have gotten super expensive. So this is the problem. Our area has grown out so much. So areas that used to be A's and B's are now grown out. So the areas that were C's are now going to be A's and B's. And that's the changing in the pricing structure, right? And that's the problem. So now the affordability has changed. The affordability has moved out of our area, but yet the jobs are where? In our area. So now you have to commute to our area. And here's the problem. Our area does not have the infrastructure of the subways or the trains so that's the big issue. And so I was talking when I was at the OEP barbecue to the gentleman who runs he actually did Brightline. And he said the problem with Brightline is he couldn't get anybody to ride it. So the whole concept of it continuing over to the coast, nobody was riding it. So it didn't make sense for Brightline to continue. And that's why they lost all the money and they ended up moving elsewhere. They put their money in other places. But it's true. We need to have the trains here, but we don't have a base that rides them. And so to suddenly create all this, put the money into creating a base that would ride the trains doesn't make any sense, because if you do that and you don't have people who ride them, what's the point? So nobody wants to take that. That's a huge risk. I mean, if you think about the money that it would take to do it, and then the risk reward is too great because, well, the infrastructure to go in, but then you have to know that you're going to have a base that's going to ride it. And do we know that we have that base here? I don't think so. It's not proven that it does. That's the problem.
And the way we're also like, way we were built.
Yes.
Than other, like,
It's more than just the train.
Yeah.
When
How do you get to the train?
Now
Right.
the train,
Right.
get off the train, what do I do now? Walk there? I can't walk there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's really about understanding the micro, the macro economics of the area, the job growth of the area. But when you think about when you go to do your buyer profiles, right, it's understanding where they're coming from, why they're coming from here. So it's the same thing when you're looking at somebody migrating to this area. The same things are happening in their areas. And that's why this area is affordable, because when you look at, like, for example, California, oh my gosh, some areas that you're like, how much could that home be? It's ridiculously expensive. So they can come here and get so much money. So that's the same kind of situations has happened everywhere. It's just that, you pick up that home and you just put it over here. The affordability factor has changed greatly. So that's why I really love this site. And I hope you guys all use this. The OEP, the economic partnership. So if you go to the Orlando Economic Partnership website, and they have this really cool over here, living in Orlando, they have this find value here. The comparison, yep, how Orlando compares. Such a great thing. And here's the comparison tool. And you can choose 5 locations. Have you guys ever done this? This is so cool. Austin, let's consider Georgia, and then let's consider Boston. Let's consider, let's see, LA, and how about New York? Come on, what else? Where did New York go? Did I miss New York? Oh, let's throw Miami in there. Okay. And then it gives you the key economic factors of the difference, the workforce of the difference, the different business climates of the difference, the infrastructure of the difference, the quality of life. That is a really cool, different thing that you can look at.
Hours lost in congestion.
Yeah, so this is really great. So if you are looking and you wanted to do a buyer profile, right? And you found that you think buyers are coming from a different area, this is terrific to bring on a listing presentation to showcase another reason why the buyers might be coming here. Does this make sense? This is a great tool, and then you can export this data. Export to PDF. Now, I just picked random places, right? Obviously, we would have a little bit better idea of why we picked these areas. You understand? But this is terrific to add to a listing presentation, right? Obviously, you're not randomly picking areas like I just did, and then you can explain how we're going to use this information along with our Sotheby's to target, buyers in specific areas. But this is how we're going to use the fact that the living is different, based upon obviously what we're considering to be why we think the buyers are going to come into there. But we're going to add this into our buyer profile. Does this make sense? This is just one other really cool tool that I love from the OEP. All right, any other questions? Oh, did you guys all see that? Did I not share my screen on that? Did I not share my screen, guys? Here's it is. It's the buyer comparison tool. You pick the cities, and then it gives you all of this economy, workforce, business climate, infrastructure, quality of life. And then you say right here, export to PDF. And then you have the PDF right here. Let me show it to you. And this is what you can bring right in your listing presentation. That's pretty cool, right? Any questions from anybody online or in my class? I hope this has been helpful for you guys today. Now that you're up on everything new, I hope you use this in your listings. Yes, Barbara?
Very helpful. Lots of good information.
Good. All right, guys. Well, hope to see you again in person or soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.